15. Michael Gain, Kerry, Ireland. It was just another quiet evening when Michael Gain, a 60-year-old man known for his gentle presence, was captured for the last time on CCTV. He lived a simple, steady life, nothing dramatic or out of the ordinary, but on February 12, 2005, something shifted. His final known steps, caught on a security camera, became the beginning of a mystery that has yet to be solved. Michael had been seen earlier in the day by a few people in his neighborhood. That night, a camera picked him up, walking near a public car park. He was alone. His pace was normal, and there was no visible distress. He wasn't carrying anything unusual. His face didn't suggest anything was wrong. It looked like any other moment, until it became his last. What followed is what continues to confuse so many. After that short appearance on camera, Michael seemed to vanish completely. No one saw him after that. He didn't return home. His house was left untouched. There were no signs of trouble, no note, and no evidence of a plan to leave. Once he was reported missing, the search began right away. Rivers were checked. Fields and wooded areas nearby were combed by volunteers and law enforcement. People went door to door asking questions, hoping for a clue. But nothing surfaced. No belongings, no new footage, and not even the smallest hint of where he might have gone. There was nothing in Michael's life that hinted at a reason for sudden disappearance. No recent changes, no health issues, and no signs of struggle. Friends and neighbors described him as soft-spoken, dependable, and kind. He wasn't the kind of person to simply walk away from everything. That's why the footage from that night remains so important. It's the last solid piece of the puzzle. What makes his case especially eerie is the silence that followed. No leads, no developments. The headlines faded and time moved on, but that single video clip still exists, and with it, the frozen image of a man taking what would be his final known steps. There's something unsettling about watching a video of someone, knowing that moment became the end of the trail. You expect more to follow, but it never does. Michael's case remains unsolved, and even now, all these years later, people who knew him still ask the same question: what really happened after that quiet walk into the unknown? 14. Charlene Hobbs, Cardiff, United Kingdom. She was just 22, walking through the late evening calm, when a short CCTV clip captured what would become the final image of Charlene Hobbs. That brief video, clear and uneventful, now carries the weight of an entire mystery. Charlene was seen on camera walking alone. She wore a light-colored hoodie and jeans. Her head was slightly down, her pace steady. It was just after 10 p.m. She had visited a friend earlier and was believed to be on her way home. Nothing in the footage looked unusual. She didn't seem nervous. No one followed behind. Yet moments after stepping out of the camera's view, she disappeared without a trace. Those who knew Charlene described her as kind but private. She had faced some challenges, like many young adults finding their way in the world. Still, she stayed in contact with family. That's why her silence was felt almost immediately. When no one heard from her the next day, her family knew something was wrong. They contacted the authorities, who began searching. Familiar paths, local gathering spots, and frequent locations were checked. Friends were called, flyers were posted, but no one had seen her. No tips came in. The streets she often walked now held no answers. There were no signs of struggle. Her phone never pinged again. Her social media remained untouched. Her bank account sat still. It was as if she had stepped off the edge of the visible world the moment that camera lost sight of her. That clip became more than just a recording. It became the center of her case. People watched it, rewatched it, hoping they'd spot something missed. But there's nothing. Just Charlene, alone, on a regular night, calmly walking as she had likely done many times before. Her story has been shared in online forums, by amateur sleuths and in quiet conversations among strangers who were moved by her vanishing. Still, no breakthroughs have come. Charlene's disappearance remains unsolved. That last glimpse of her, moving steadily into the unknown, is all that remains, a few seconds frozen in time. It reminds us just how fragile a moment can be. One step can change everything, and a single video frame can be the only piece left in a puzzle that never quite comes together. 13. Sudika Kananki, Dominican Republic. It was supposed to be a relaxing trip, sunshine, ocean air, and time with friends. For 23-year-old Sudika Kananki, the getaway had been full of smiling photos, shared meals, and peaceful afternoons. Everything seemed normal. But on one summer night in 2019, that calm turned into a mystery still weighing heavily on those who knew her. Sudika had traveled with a small group of close friends. She posted pictures, laughed easily, and enjoyed the slower pace of vacation. But on July 27th, something changed. That night she was captured on CCTV leaving her hotel. The footage showed her walking calmly, wearing a sundress and sandals. She didn't appear worried. It looked like she was simply stepping out, maybe for air, maybe to meet someone. Nothing about her behavior seemed off, but that clip became the last time anyone saw her. Her friends expected her back that night, but her room stayed empty. When the next morning came and she still hadn't returned, panic set in. They alerted the local authorities, and the search began immediately. Police spoke to hotel staff and nearby businesses. They retraced her steps as best they could. Her passport, clothes, and personal items were untouched in her room. Her phone stopped working not long after she left the hotel. There were no signs of a struggle, no clear warning, just silence. In the days that followed, her case made headlines. People shared her photo, hoping someone had seen her, but without new developments, the coverage quickly faded. For her family, though, every hour without answers grew heavier. Her parents flew in to help. They searched the same streets she may have walked, posted flyers, and asked questions to anyone willing to talk. But despite their efforts, no one could say where Sudika had gone, or why. The only lasting clue was that short CCTV clip. Every frame was studied closely. Her direction, posture, and even background objects were examined, hoping for something, anything that might offer a lead. But nothing solid ever came of it. Sudika Kananki's case remains open. Her disappearance is a quiet but powerful reminder. Even in the most peaceful, welcoming places, someone can simply vanish. And sometimes all we're left with is a short video and a long list of unanswered questions. 12. Janiah Walker, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In early 2021, one neighborhood was left stunned when 18-year-old Janiah Walker vanished without warning. Her story quickly gained attention, not only because she was young and full of promise, but also because her last known moments were caught on camera just hours before she disappeared. On March 23rd, Janiah was seen on CCTV walking out of a small corner store. She had gone in to buy snacks, something she often did. The footage shows her dressed casually, phone in hand, walking calmly down the sidewalk. She didn't look distressed. Nothing in her body language seemed off. Then, in a matter of seconds, she moved out of frame. That short clip became a central piece in a case filled with questions. When she didn't return home that night, her family grew concerned. Calls went unanswered. Texts were left on read. As the hours passed, worry turned into fear. Janiah wasn't the kind of person to go off without saying something. She was dependable and close to her family. She was wrapping up her final year of high school and had already started planning for college. Her future was right in front of her, which made her sudden disappearance even harder to understand. Police began an investigation soon after she was reported missing. They searched the neighborhood, spoke to store staff, and reviewed footage from nearby buildings. But no other cameras caught where she went next. That one brief clip from the store remained the last known record of her steps. Her community didn't stay quiet. Friends, neighbors, and classmates came together. Vigils were held. Posters went up. Online campaigns urged anyone with information to speak up. But despite the effort, no strong leads followed. The case seemed to stall. The video, just a few seconds long, became something her family returned to over and over. Each time they wondered, where was she going? Did someone meet her nearby? Was something just outside the frame that no one caught? Janiah Walker's case remains open. Her family holds on to the hope that she'll come back, that someone will finally come forward with the missing piece. In a world full of motion and noise, her absence speaks volumes, and that short walk down a sidewalk still echoes in the hearts of those waiting for her return. 11. Jermaine Charlo, Missoula, Montana. She was 23 years old, full of energy, connected to her community, and known for her love of nature and family. Then, one night in the summer of 2018, Jermaine Charlo vanished. The most haunting part of her story is that her final known steps were caught on a surveillance camera, brief, quiet, and still unexplained. The footage was taken just after midnight. Jermaine was walking with someone believed to be familiar to her. She wore jeans, a grey shirt, and had her hair pulled back. Her posture was relaxed, her pace steady. She didn't look scared. It was the kind of walk someone takes when they think they're heading somewhere safe. But after that clip, nothing more was seen or heard from her. She never returned home. Her phone stopped working. She missed an important family event the next day, something she never would have skipped. Her loved ones knew instantly that something was wrong. Jermaine was proud of her identity and her roots. Her story brought attention to a larger crisis, one that affects many Indigenous women across the country. Too often, these cases don't receive the same attention or urgency, but her family refused to let her name fade. They pushed for action, raised awareness, and made sure her story was heard. The search efforts stretched across forests, rivers, back roads, and city streets. Volunteers gave their time, hoping to find any clue that could bring Jermaine home. Authorities followed multiple leads, but none led anywhere conclusive. That short video remained the last clear image, her walking off camera, never to be seen again. Her case raised hard questions. Why do some stories go unheard? Why are certain cases treated with less urgency? Jermaine's disappearance became not just a personal loss, but a call for change. Advocates stepped in, campaigns were launched, and her name became part of a much larger conversation. Despite all efforts, no clear evidence has ever emerged. The man in the footage was questioned but never charged. The investigation remains open, but with every year that passes, the need for answers grows heavier. That short clip still lingers. You watch her walking, unaware that the moment would become her last documented step. It's a hard kind of silence to explain. Her family continues to hold out hope that one day someone will come forward and break the quiet surrounding her final moments. 10. Trevor Deely, Dublin, Ireland. It was just after 4 a.m. when Trevor Deely, a 22-year-old office worker, stepped out into the rain. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that only exists in the early hours before the world fully wakes up. He had just left his holiday party, made a quick stop by his workplace to grab an umbrella, and then continued his walk through the city. CCTV footage captured him walking alone. His posture was calm. He didn't appear rushed or anxious. A man in dark clothing, previously spotted near the building's entrance, briefly followed behind him before fading from view. Trevor, unaware or unbothered, kept walking steadily into the night. That brief footage became the last confirmed sighting of him. When Trevor didn't show up for work the next day, No alarm was raised at first. It was a Friday. Some assumed he'd taken an extra day off, but when hours passed with no word, concern grew quickly. His family contacted authorities, and what started as a small concern became a full investigation. Trevor was well liked, dependable, and not the kind of person to vanish without reason. Search efforts focused on the paths he may have taken home. Canals were checked. Nearby parks and streets were walked again and again. Volunteers handed out flyers, but not a single clue turned up. No discarded items, no verified sightings. Only that one silent video clip remained. One of the most puzzling parts of the case was the unknown man seen near Trevor, both before and after he entered his office. His identity has never been confirmed. While investigators never proved he had any direct connection to Trevor's disappearance, his presence has raised questions that linger to this day. Years later, enhanced footage provided a clearer look, but no real answers. What happened after Trevor turned that last corner? Did someone meet him out of view? Or did something occur so quickly that even nearby cameras missed it? His story is remembered year after year. Each winter, those who knew him, and even those who didn't, share his image and reflect on that night. A young man walking alone, calm, unaware that he was stepping into a silence that still hasn't lifted. Trevor's disappearance remains one of those cases that stays with people, not just because it's unsolved, but because of the stillness, the normalcy, and the suddenness of it all. 9. Tiffany Witten, Marietta, Georgia. It was a little after midnight when 26-year-old Tiffany Witten entered a large retail store with her boyfriend. What began as a routine trip turned into the starting point of one of the most perplexing missing persons cases in recent memory, all centered around a few seconds of footage. Surveillance video showed Tiffany walking through the aisles. She was wearing a black tank top and light pants. Her steps were quick, and her behavior caught the attention of employees. Store security began watching her closely. Something about the way she moved suggested she didn't plan to stay long. A few minutes later, Tiffany made a sudden dash toward the exit. It appeared she was trying to leave without paying for a few items. A store employee followed her out the doors. That would be the last time anyone saw her. She vanished into the night. No goodbye, no trail, no second camera angle. Police were called to the scene. Her boyfriend remained behind and spoke with officers. He claimed Tiffany had run off and hadn't returned. But that explanation never sat well with investigators. Over time, suspicion grew around the people closest to her. Still, no charges were ever filed, and no physical evidence turned up. Tiffany's life before that night had been filled with challenges. She had her struggles, but she also had people who cared for her deeply. Her mother described her as smart, funny, and full of life. Despite everything, she always kept in touch. That's why her silence was so loud. It simply didn't fit who she was. The CCTV footage became the core of the case. Her sprint out of the store was the final known moment. From then on, her phone went dark. Her bank account stayed untouched. Her name stopped appearing anywhere it once had. The world kept moving, but for those close to her, time felt frozen. Investigators chased leads, hoping one would break the silence, but the trail always went cold. Tips came and went, but none brought clarity. Her family never gave up. They continued to raise awareness, share her story, and hold out hope that someone, somewhere, knew the missing piece. That brief footage, just a few seconds long, became everything. A single ordinary moment, a young woman leaving a store, now holds the weight of years without answers. Tiffany Witten's case remains open, her story still waiting to be finished. 8. Jennifer Kessie, Orlando, Florida. It began with a missed call and a silent phone. Jennifer Kessie, 24 years old, was the kind of person who never just skipped work or ignored messages. She was organized, driven, and known for always being on time. That's why, on the morning of January 24th, 2006, when she didn't show up for her job, her loved ones immediately knew something was wrong. She had recently returned from a short trip with her boyfriend and seemed in good spirits. She lived alone and had a steady routine. But that morning, her phone went straight to voicemail. Her car was missing, and her apartment showed no signs of anything unusual. There was no struggle. Her belongings were in place, but she was gone. 2 days later, her car was found abandoned in the parking lot of a nearby complex. That discovery brought a strange and frustrating clue, a piece of surveillance footage showing someone getting out of her car and calmly walking away. The video became the center of the case. Unfortunately, the clip didn't bring answers. Every few frames, the person's face was blocked by the bars of a nearby gate. Just when the image seemed like it might offer a lead, it hid the one detail everyone needed: an identity. The person moved without panic, without rushing, as if following a plan. And then they were gone. Investigators believe Jennifer likely left her home that morning with the intention of going to work. Something must have happened shortly after she stepped outside. Something quick, silent, and without witnesses. No clear evidence was found to explain where she went or who may have approached her. Her family never stopped searching. They brought in private investigators and followed every possible lead. Her case has been featured in major news outlets, discussed on podcasts, and shared across social media. But still, that blurry footage remains the most solid piece of the puzzle. Jennifer's disappearance changed the way many people viewed routine safety. She did everything right, kept a stable schedule, stayed in touch, made plans for the future, and yet she vanished in the space of a regular morning. That video clip, grainy, frustrating, and incomplete, still holds a kind of quiet power. It captured the last movement tied to Jennifer's case. A calm walk, a hidden face, and a truth that remains just out of view. 7. Peter Bergman, Sligo, Ireland. He arrived quietly, carrying only a few belongings and a name that would later turn out to be false. Over several days in June 2009, a man, later referred to as Peter Bergman, moved calmly through a small town, captured on CCTV over and over, always alone, always deliberate. What followed was one of the most baffling and chilling disappearances ever recorded. He checked into a modest hotel and gave a name that didn't exist in any database. Each day, security footage showed him leaving the hotel carrying a distinct purple plastic bag, but each time he returned, the bag was gone. No one saw where he went or what he did during those stretches of time. Investigators believe he was carefully disposing of personal items, possibly to erase any clues to his real identity. He avoided areas with too many cameras. He didn't talk to people unless necessary. His movements were quiet and calculated. Cameras caught him mailing letters, buying stamps, and making several trips to the local post office. Hotel staff said he was polite and kept to himself. He seemed completely in control. On the surface, there was nothing unusual about him, but looking back, everything about his presence felt intentional, like a man preparing to vanish. On his final day, he checked out of the hotel and walked toward a remote shoreline. More cameras caught his last known steps. The next morning, his body was found on the beach. There were no visible injuries, no signs of distress, and very little around him to explain what had happened. When authorities tried to identify him, they hit a wall. His fingerprints, dental records, and even DNA returned no matches in any international system. The name he used was fictional. His accent gave no clear clue to his origin, and none of the personal items he left behind offered answers. He had come and gone like a shadow. The footage of his movements has since been reviewed by investigators, journalists, and online communities around the world. Each clip shows a man with a plan, a person doing everything they can to disappear completely. To this day, no one knows who Peter Bergman really was. His story remains unsolved. A man with no past, no confirmed name, and no one to claim him. His mystery lingers as a reminder that even in a world full of eyes and recordings, someone can still vanish without leaving a single truth behind. 6. McStay family, San Diego, California. In early 2010, a family of 4, Joseph, Summer, and their 2 young sons, seemed to vanish without warning. Their disappearance became one of the most unsettling and widely discussed cases in recent memory, starting with a quiet home left untouched and a strange piece of security footage that only added to the confusion. On February 4th, they stopped answering calls and messages. At first, friends and family weren't immediately worried. Joseph ran a small business and often had a busy schedule. But as the days passed and no one heard anything, concern quickly grew. Their home was eventually checked. Inside, everything looked normal, except for the dogs, who had been left without food or care. That was the first real sign something was very wrong. Just a few days later, the family's SUV was found abandoned in a public parking lot. Security footage from a nearby area showed what appeared to be 2 adults and 2 children walking calmly on foot. The clip wasn't clear enough to confirm their identities, but many believed it was the missing family. That video would become the center of the investigation. Why would a family leave without a word? Why leave pets behind? Why vanish without taking essentials? And if the people in the video were them, why didn't they ever return? For years, the case remained a mystery. Some believed the family had left willingly, starting a new life elsewhere. Others were certain something had gone wrong. But despite countless theories and searches, no hard evidence surfaced. Then in 2013, everything changed. The remains of the family were discovered in a remote desert area, far from where their vehicle had been found. While we won't go into detail, it was immediately clear they had not left by choice. Investigators eventually linked the case to someone once connected to Joseph through business. Though motives are still debated, the act itself confirmed what many had feared all along. The family had been harmed, not lost. The footage that once gave a flicker of hope was likely a misdirection. It sent the search in the wrong direction for years, clouding the truth with confusion. Yet it remained the only visual clue for a long time. The McStay family's disappearance was once seen as a quiet exit from an ordinary life. But behind that silence was a far deeper tragedy, one that shook people far beyond those who knew them. Even now, the memory of that short, blurry clip lingers as a symbol of how mysteries can both mislead and haunt. 5. Kieran Deran, Drogheda, Ireland. He was 22 years old, thoughtful, well-liked, and looking ahead to what came next. On a calm night in the spring of 2022, Kieran Deran walked alone down a quiet street, his steps captured on CCTV. Nothing about the footage seemed unusual, but after that, Kieran was never seen again. The video showed him moving at a steady pace just after 10 p.m. He wasn't in a rush. His posture looked relaxed. It was the kind of walk that suggested familiarity, like someone heading somewhere they'd been many times before. That brief moment became the last known sighting of him. When he didn't come home or reply to messages, his family grew concerned. The next day, they reported him missing. A search began quickly. Friends, neighbors, and volunteers joined local authorities. Drones flew over riverbanks, boats scanned the water, flyers with Kieran's face appeared everywhere. Still, there were no solid leads. One of the biggest challenges was the absence of any follow-up footage. After he stepped beyond the camera's view, no other recordings picked him up. No witnesses came forward. No digital trail offered direction. It was as if he had simply stepped off the map. The community responded with urgency and care. People shared his photo, joined search parties, and stood beside his family. For many, the idea of a young person vanishing in a close-knit area felt unreal. Cases like this weren't supposed to happen in places where people know each other by name. The CCTV clip became both a piece of evidence and a haunting reminder. It froze a few seconds in time, showing a calm, ordinary moment that would later carry the weight of a growing mystery. Kieran's disappearance also sparked larger conversations about how vulnerable people can be, even in familiar settings. It brought more awareness to missing person cases and the emotional toll they take on the families left behind. Though the formal search efforts eventually slowed, support for his family did not. They continue to hope that one day, someone will come forward with the missing piece. Kieran Deran's last walk remains etched in the minds of many. It was a peaceful moment that turned into something unexplainable. One young man, one quiet night, and a short piece of video, now part of a story still waiting for answers. 4. Alex Slowly, London, United Kingdom. The streets were alive with the usual noise, people commuting, voices overlapping, cars passing by. It was just another ordinary day in a busy urban setting when 16-year-old Alex Slowly disappeared. He wasn't far from home. He wasn't in a remote area. He was in the middle of a familiar neighborhood. And then, without warning, he was gone. It was August 2nd, 2008. Alex had been staying with a friend during the summer break. That morning, he told the friend's mother he was heading home. It was a short and simple trip, one he had done before, but this time he never arrived. He didn't call, he didn't text, he didn't return. Not long after, CCTV footage surfaced showing someone believed to be Alex walking calmly down a street near where he was last seen. He wore casual clothes, walked with a steady stride, and didn't show any signs of panic. It looked like a normal moment, something you wouldn't think twice about, until it became the last time he was seen. After that, his trail vanished. There were no new transactions on his bank account. His phone was silent. No travel cards were used. For a teenager in a city filled with cameras and movement, it was like he had stepped off the map entirely. His family reported him missing quickly. They described Alex as a smart, respectful young man with goals and a strong sense of direction. He had plans. He had dreams. Becoming an architect was one of them. His behavior didn't fit the idea of someone who would just walk away. Searches began. Flyers were posted. His face appeared in public awareness campaigns and on television. Still, no solid leads came. Tips dried up. Time passed, but his parents never gave up. They stayed vocal, pushing for answers and reminding the public that Alex was still out there, somewhere. That CCTV footage remains the single clue in his case. A teenager walking alone, blending into the crowd. A moment that would become the start of a silence that has lasted more than a decade. In a place where nothing seems to go unnoticed, Alex Slowly's disappearance stands as one of the most haunting. One short walk caught on tape, no cries for help, no sign of struggle, just a quiet step into the unknown and a family still waiting for him to return. 3. Jonathan, Kirkland, Washington. It was a cool evening in late October 2017 when 22-year-old Jonathan, a college student, left the campus library. He had been studying for exams and sent a quick message to a friend saying he was heading home. It should have been an ordinary walk, familiar, routine, but he never arrived, and what followed was a mystery that still hasn't been solved. A nearby security camera captured a glimpse of him near a small parking lot. He was walking alone toward a quiet area. His backpack was slung over one shoulder and his phone was in his hand. He didn't appear nervous or rushed. He looked like someone wrapping up a long day. That short video is the last confirmed sighting of him. When he didn't show up to class the next morning and stopped answering texts, his friends became concerned. Not long after, his family reported him missing. Authorities began searching right away. Parks, trails, and wooded areas nearby were combed through. Drones flew overhead. Divers searched the water, but nothing was found. His phone had gone silent. His belongings were never recovered. Investigators reviewed additional camera footage in hopes of tracking his movements, but there was no follow-up sighting. After that single moment near the parking lot, Jonathan seemed to vanish. He was known as someone steady and thoughtful. He didn't have a history of skipping out or leaving suddenly. He kept his commitments. His digital records went cold. No social media activity, no bank transactions, no sign of travel. That small piece of CCTV footage remains central to the case. People have looked closely at his posture, his direction, even reflections and background details, searching for anything that might offer more. But each time, it ends with the same unanswered question. How can someone disappear so suddenly, so silently? His story stands out because of its quietness. There was no warning, no note, no clear moment of danger. Just a young man finishing his day, and then nothing. Jonathan's family continues to seek answers. They hold on to hope that someone saw something, remembers something, or will come forward with a piece of information that could lead them to the truth. That short video clip now represents more than just a walk home. It holds the final image of someone caught in an everyday moment, one that would turn into a years-long silence, still waiting to be broken. 2. Tracy Hawkins, Campbell County, Tennessee. The winding roads, wooded hills, and quiet streets of a small town often bring comfort to those who live there. It's the kind of place where people recognize familiar faces at the store, and news travels fast. But even in places like that, some stories go unanswered. One of them is Tracy Hawkins, a 44-year-old woman whose 2014 disappearance still lingers without resolution. On the evening of October 3rd, Tracy was seen on CCTV inside a gas station. She stood at the counter, buying a few small items and chatting politely with the cashier. Her posture was relaxed. She didn't seem rushed or uneasy. Everything about her behavior appeared normal. After paying, she walked toward the parking lot and out of the camera's view. That was the last time anyone saw her. Tracy didn't have a car with her that night. It's believed she planned to walk to a nearby house or get a ride, but she never arrived. When she didn't show up the next morning or respond to calls, her family knew something was wrong. They reached out to authorities, and the search began. The area surrounding her last known location was filled with challenges: overgrown trails, thick woods, and steep hills. Volunteers and law enforcement covered miles of terrain looking for any sign of her, but nothing surfaced. No personal items, no broken branches, no signs of distress. That single clip from the gas station became the key piece in her case. No other cameras caught her afterward. No cars followed her out of frame. There were no witnesses. It was just one everyday moment frozen in time, completely ordinary, and yet now incredibly important. Her story didn't reach national headlines, but in her community, it's still remembered. Her face appears on flyers, and her name is mentioned in conversations between people who haven't forgotten. Her family continues to raise awareness, hoping someone will come forward, even years later, with something that might help. It's hard to imagine someone vanishing in a place they knew so well, just steps away from a well-lit store. But that's what happened. One minute, Tracy was running a simple errand. The next, she was gone, leaving behind only a few seconds of video and a silence that's never been explained. 1. Jermaine Charlo, Missoula, Montana, revisited. There are some stories that stay with you, not just because they're mysterious, but because they reveal something deeper about the world we live in. Jermaine Charlo's case is one of those stories. It begins with a few seconds of CCTV footage, but it continues far beyond that moment, carried by the voices of those who refuse to let her be forgotten. Jermaine was 23 years old when she disappeared in the summer of 2018. She had spent the evening with friends, laughing, talking, and walking through places she knew well. Just after midnight, a security camera caught her outside a grocery store. She was walking with a man believed to be someone she knew. The clip is short. Her steps are steady. Her expression is calm. Nothing about the footage feels alarming, and yet that was the final confirmed time anyone saw her. That single moment, one ordinary night, one simple walk, has become the heart of a case that still has no answers. Jermaine was known as a caring, strong, and grounded young woman. She came from a close-knit family and held deep pride in her culture. Her ties to her heritage weren't just part of her identity, they were part of how she moved through the world. Her absence left not only her family in pain, but also her wider community, who looked to her as a symbol of strength. The response to her disappearance was immediate. Loved ones organized search parties. Flyers went up in windows, on poles, and in community centers. Local volunteers combed the nearby forests, riverbanks, and alleyways. Dogs were brought in. Drones searched overhead, but no clear sign of Jermaine ever turned up. Authorities got involved quickly. State and federal investigators reviewed footage, questioned witnesses, and followed leads, but none led to answers. Her phone went silent. Her bank account stayed untouched. Her name stopped appearing in systems where it once did. The CCTV clip, just a few seconds of footage, remained the only firm clue. Over time, Jermaine's case became something larger. It came to represent the growing concern over missing Indigenous women, whose stories are too often overlooked or underreported. Her disappearance sparked calls for justice, changes in policy, and national awareness campaigns. Her face was carried on signs, across social media, and at public events where families gathered to speak the names of those still missing. And through all of this, that short clip plays on, Jermaine, walking, unaware that her steps would become a mystery with no clear ending. Even now, years later, her family keeps searching. Her name is still spoken. Her memory still lights candles. And though time has passed, hope hasn't. They believe answers are still possible, and they continue to share her story with anyone willing to listen. Jermaine's case reminds us that behind every piece of footage is a real person, with dreams, with love, with purpose. She wasn't just caught on camera. She was living a full life. And while that video may be the last known image, it's far from the final word. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.